what we've got now, if you can just hold it a bit tighter, so yep, lovely. So where we are now is here at Eves, okay, Granville. We've come down and we're on the Falaise Road, and I'm just making sure that's it. We're at Boogabush Ridge, which is there. Happy with that? Yep. So that is the Goodwood battlefield, and there is the rest of the fighting that we've taken on. So the story goes, so let's make it the 21st of July. The 21st of July, what's happened is, if you forget those army lines now, because that was for D-Day, is that Montgomery has drawn the bulk of the German armoured divisions now onto the British, and Goodwood sucks in elements of 3 or 4 Panzer divisions over here, where we've got, and that is the American front line roughly. Remember, we did that yesterday. Villebocage, there is Saint-Lô, there is Coutances, and the plan is that they're going to launch Operation Cobra on the 24th of July. Yep. Because they can't do any earlier than that. They don't capture Saint-Lô until the 18th of July, the same day that Goodwood begins. So all this so 29th Infantry Division, Task Force Cota and all the rest of it come into Saint-Lô at the same time as loads of bombers, and I'm going to try very hard not to sort of tread over that, assist the breakout from the eastern beachhead and the British armoured assault in that direction. And in parallel with that, the Canadians finally occupying the rest of Caen. 18th of July, that's a long way. Or in fact the 19th, they really get there. That's tomorrow. So that all happens. Goodwood is closed down. Montgomery, as I'll re-emphasise tomorrow, has made much claim about Goodwood, is that it's the start of the breakout, and it's one of those things about Montgomery. I don't know why he did it, because he didn't need to say it, because Montgomery did lots of good things, but he tried always to sort of say I was the most important part. That seemed to be his MO if you look back at a lot of other things that he did. But actually now what's going to happen is the Americans on the 25th of July break out, and they start heading down towards the coast, and their plan is to get over the rivers here and then swing around to the left. Now what I put here is the Mortain counterattack. Now the Mortain counterattack begins on the 7th of August, as we've already said, and draws in elements then of some of the tanks that have been used up here for Operation Goodwood, and other tank divisions that have been used in trying to hold the Americans. Who have the Americans got in front of them? Really all that's left of Panzer, all that's left of 17th Gott von Berlichingen SS Panzer Grenadier Division, and elements of Das Reich. That's about, in terms of armour, most of the armour is over facing the British, because the Germans still believe that this is going to be the main route of the breakout, which is down the Falaise, Argentan, Alençon route, because then you can swing and come around to Paris. Paris lays over here somewhere. Yeah, as you know, you have to go up and then left to go to Paris, and that's there. So what I've done is I've showed you where Falaise and Argentan are. Yeah. Now, the Allies don't know yet, because they don't know where the Germans are going to try and get out. They don't discover, but by them doing this, Operation Lüttich, then it actually defines the way that the pocket is going to develop. And the pocket, although it's known as the Falaise pocket, it really isn't, as I'll show you this afternoon. It's over here, and this small area over here is the route where the Germans are getting out, because as the first and third armies American first and third army start swinging around the south, it creates the pocket in which they're gonna be sucked into. All right, and so what happens is on the 21st of July, there is an enormous shift in the British dispositions. By the British, I mean the Canadian as well. And so what happens is the British then, it must have been a massive staff effort to do that, because they switched the armies over. Because what has happened is the 2nd British Army well, they sort of moved the Canadian Army really, has had Sword Beach and Gold Beach, and in that has been the Canadian Corps with its divisions. Now the Canadians have brought the 3rd Infantry Division and the 4th Canadian Armoured Division, and they're really almost an army in their own right. They need a little bit more, so they get 33rd Armoured Brigade, yeah, with 148 Regiment, Royal Armoured Corps, and the Northamptonshire Yeomanry and the Staffordshire Yeomanry. 27th Armoured Brigade is gone now, yeah, and they've broken up a few of the other units to sort of feed reserves into the other things, other brigades. 51st Highland Division, now with a new commander, and we'll come to them tomorrow if I may, is now attached to the 1st Canadian Army under Crerar, and Crerar gets the coast. That's going to be his job. Yeah. Yep. With other units that he's now got under command 2nd and 3rd Canadian Infantry Divisions, 4th Canadian Armoured Division, 2nd Canadian Armoured Brigade, 51st Highland, and also 33rd Armoured Brigade from the Brits. And so that's going to be his army, which is going to go there. But what he gets is the task of breaking down to Falaise, because 2nd British Army now has taken responsibility for that whole distance between Caen and the Americans. And the rough line of the 1st American Division, 1st American Division, who's the left marker, if you like, of the Americans' 1st Army, is Saint-Lô, well, just to the left of Saint-Lô and coming down towards Condé Noriot. And yesterday, if we'd have carried on down, there was a real row between 3rd Infantry Division, Montgomery, Dempsey, et al., and the American 1st Army, who's now commanded by Bradley at that particular time. He doesn't yet have the 1st Army Group, that's the 12th Army Group, that's going to come, or 1st US Army Group, that's going to come. But who has responsibility for the road between, where's Condé Noriot, is over there and Condé Noriot, and there's a real argument goes on is who has that responsibility for the road. The Americans are asking for it for the 2nd Armoured Division, the British are asking for it for the 11th Armoured Division, and basically what happens is that causes a bit of a delay, and it's not an accident that down here is where Sudaval is, where Sidney Bates wins his Victoria Cross, fighting elements of 9th SS Panzer Division. Yep. Okay, right, that's right down there. Condé Noriot is just up in that area. And so this is an area of military dispute, not fighting dispute, okay? And so the Americans are now pushing in with British 3rd Infantry Division, American 1st Infantry Division, side by side now. But what I have highlighted here, just to keep them in your mind, are who are the 2 forward divisions. Well, it is 51st Highland, the rejuvenated 51st Highland under General Rennie, and 90th Infantry Division, who were going to be commanded by Roosevelt, but not because he had that heart attack. Behind them, and I've done that of interest more than anything else, supposedly supporting 90th Infantry Division is the 2nd Division du Blindé, who now have got their eyes on a bigger target coming a little bit later as our day develops and as the battle develops. They're happy with that. So what we're going to be looking at today is going down here and looking at the 2 Canadian operations, which effectively creates the northern shoulder of the Falaise pocket. Yep. All right, happy with that? Yep. And that is the 2 operations called in order Totalize and Tractable. All right, so you need your books for that because the maps are in there. Yep. This is tanks and it's moving. And what the other things, we'll fold the map up now, guys. Thanks very much. What else has happened is the Allied logistics problem has manifested itself in a way which was sort of beneficial and surprising, in that the Canadians have got priests rather than sextons. What do I mean by that? For those who don't know, a sexton is a self-propelled 25-pounder. A priest is a self-propelled American 105mm field gun. The Americans have not got enough ammunition for their own 105mm guns. So they basically tell the Canadians, unlucky mate, we're not going to give you any more ammunition. That's in essence what happens. So the Canadians then have to either make a decision as to take towed 105mm, towed 25 pounders, or are they going to convert them? Well, they make the decision largely to use towed 25 pounders because that's easy enough to get. We can produce them, in they come. So what they have is a load of priests which they really can't use. So what they've now cottoned on to is how do you keep the infantry moving at the pace of the tank? Well, of course, the obvious answer to us 70 years later, with the advent, or what should have been obvious really anyway, because the Germans already had Panzer Grenadiers, is to have armoured infantry, not in a half track, but on a tank chassis. So what they do is they call them defrocked priests, and so they take the guns out and they do a little bit of extra welding on the front and give the Canadian infantry, not all of them because there's not enough of them to do that, but they give the lead Canadian infantry some form of armoured personnel carrier. Yep, not an infantry fighting vehicle, which is one they fight from, like Marder and to a lesser degree Warrior and all the rest of it, but they certainly have an ability now to keep up with the armour, and that is going to be important because what Carrere is given the brief is this is wide open country. This is not like the blockage. There's lots of wide open fields. There were in those days. The aerial photographs show that, and so the Canadians are given the brief. You've got to push on. You've got to push on. They know that they're going to run into what's left, which is still considerable, but not as much as it was 4 days earlier or a week earlier at Goodwood, because there was still a lot more armour, German armour left than perhaps the British on-ground intelligence had assessed. Yeah, which is why Goodwood is perhaps not the success they envisaged it to be, or Montgomery had led his press corps to believe. That's the point he makes, and then tries in hindsight to justify it in a different way, when really it did. When we look back, with fully back in hindsight, it actually did what was intended and what was his intent in the first place, which was to draw as much of what was left of the German armour onto the British sector to allow the Americans to break out, which of course they did. Yeah, okay, happy with all that? Yeah. So let's go look at the ground. So what we'll do is we'll go and follow, first up we're going to follow 51st Highland Division and the 33rd Armoured Brigade, British not Canadians, and then we'll do a flip-flop and take the Canadians on down to somewhere near a place called Saint-Sylvain.